and what are the limitations and the restrictions, and the other piece is also our staff's capacity to actually deliver the project successfully, as well as other parts of the agency. And if you go to the next, please. And then this is the information that was presented. So I preface this by saying this looks like a lot of different programs, and everything where we talk about it being new. New refers to it being a specific line item different from what we did in the 21-24 STIP. This does not mean that we will have a new and separate program for each of these line items. It means that we were trying to be very transparent about some of these different elements, such as the ODOT Safe Routes to School infrastructure carve out separate from the HB 2017 state funded Safe Routes to School infrastructure projects. The other piece that I also shared with them, and then I'll share with you as well, is that we now are pivoting. We've given some amount of thought prior to this meeting. We've given some amount of thought to the programs and program development and how we could most efficiently and effectively deliver these programs that get us the outcomes that we want, that address, you know, safety, equity, all the things that you hear us talking about now. And for some of these so we're still exploring that. For some of these, we'll be able to fold them into existing projects or processes. We might have certain lists, solicitations that we've already done, discretionary solicitations, where we're like, okay, let's go this much farther down the cut line on this list and see how to do it. There's multiple considerations that go into it. So what you're seeing here, which I think you've all had a chance to look at, is there's a plussing up by 30 million of the off-system bike PED. So that's the community paths program that Alan was talking about earlier. Plussing up by $1 million of Safe Routes to School education, a carve out for ODOT Safe Route to School infrastructure. And what that does is ODOT has more experience delivering these federally funded projects. There's a lot of additional responsibilities and strings that are attached that increase the cost to deliver those projects and some of the technical expertise to deliver them. So by doing this enables more of the state funding to go to local agencies for Safe Routes to School projects. So that's some of the rationale from that. We have the Bike PED strategic pot of money, which is super exciting to me, because this will mean for the first time, instead of us trying to leverage on existing paving projects that may not be in places that are high priority places, we will be able to focus in on the strategic projects that best meet Bike PED program needs and objectives in the state. So that is super exciting to me. There's also a plussing up of the transportation options program, which I think will probably help us with the eco rule requirements once we finally know what those are. There's $15 million for transit vehicle replacements, $1 million for passenger rail facility planning. So that's feasibility, siting, and preliminary design for a new maintenance and layover facility in Oregon. We currently have to send our trains to Seattle for maintenance and layover, so that limits our options. And then we have the active transportation leverage program, which we zeroed out because we thought it was far better and more strategic for us to be into the strategic bucket. So that's where we put it, and that's where the committee had recommended. And then this is the discretionary pieces. Down on the next slide is the mandatory, and I should have started with that, the mandatory non-highway sub allocations. So it's a number of these are mandatory in that we're required to do certain allocations, but we also have opportunities to plus these up. So the TAP funds that go to state parks, this is for recreation trails. This amount is estimated at the $4 million amount for 24-27. Mass transit funds transit vehicles for large urban mass transit districts. So that's a small plussing up of that amount. And then transit, that's funding for seniors and persons with disabilities. So that is a 12.5 million plus up there. The 1% for bike ped, that is the estimate as to what the 24-20, what 1% would be in the 24-27 realm. And the HB 2017 Safe Routes to School infrastructure, that is also an estimate of what those state funds would be. The commission gave the nod of the head that, yep, the sub allocations made sense to them. And so now we move into a program development. I can talk just a little bit about that, some of what we're doing internally to move into that next phase. But at this point, we go fairly quiet with the commission, and we start doing a lot of work both internally and with stakeholder you all, I assume in part, as we're looking at and working on developing the programs and looking for specific areas of input. So, yep, that's the moving forward information. Thank you. I forgot to say next slide, but there it is. With the commission, there might be some pieces that we need to bring back for programmatic guidance. The project selection. So you develop the programmatic guidance, then you're into project selection. If projects had not already been selected from some other prioritization process, that helps us get it. But we end up having a pretty short window of time in which to put projects into the scoping process. And so that's what we're looking at right now. How you keep disappearing from my visual. I don't know if that's me or what. So with that, I'll pause and, oh, and now I can't hear you either. This is terrible.
No, I tried to get myself off the screen so people can focus on you when you're talking. So.
Oh, I don't mind that. Yeah. I want to see reactions, because if you're making a frowny face, I want to know it. How? So with that, I wanted to turn it back to, in particular, How and Michael and Mavis. You participated in that meeting, and I'm sure your colleagues on the committee would appreciate your perspective. So I will pause and happy to answer any questions too.
Mavis or Michael, did you want to add anything? Reflect on the meeting.
Yeah, I'll go ahead. I think generally speaking, I think it was a good process. I mean, I was happy to be part of a process that was positive and where we were talking about increasing dollars. You know, it's not often in government right now that we talk about increasing things like this. So I really appreciate that. I think this is a good step forward. I think it's very telling and reassuring that not only did the staff of ODOT propose this, but the OTC approved this. Regardless of our recommendation, it was proposed by staff first and approved by OTC. So that's very reassuring in my mind.
Thank you. And to be clear, I should have said that our proposal was slightly different than where that group generally came to consensus around. The group had some recommendations about shifting, and I think we ultimately shifted, kind of 10 million here and there to put a bit more into the paths program, which benefits what we have done so far is benefiting local agencies primarily, and taken ODOT out of the running for those. So sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt, but it occurred to me that I didn't appropriately represent the shift that happened between the staff proposal and the group meeting.
I just wanted to say that I am super stoked about the results of this, that we actually are getting more money. I really want to see everybody hit this one out of the park, because there's going to be some really pissed off people because we took money out of their pot, and whether it should have been with us to start with, that is not the argument. The argument is we need to do a really good job so that we continue to receive funding like this, because let me tell you, there's some headhunters coming our way. So make sure that we make hay.
Thanks for your comments, Mavis. How do I follow that? I would agree with Michael. I really was excited to be a part of this process. But I was wondering, in the future, what would be helpful is these funding buckets. I know that ODOT staff know them so intimately, and it was really hard to sort of piece together all of the information. Because at the end of the day, one of the things that OMPAC has sorted out, and the feedback that we've gotten from a lot of external partners and local agencies, is there's not enough money there for local agencies. And so just understanding what funding buckets are available. And I think that was my only disappointment, is that the only funding bucket that was available to local agencies was the community paths. And so that's a step, I think, not in the right direction. Overall, it's so great that we have so much more money to support active transportation infrastructure, but the lack of, and the continued lack of funds available to local agencies is something that I think we need to reconcile moving into the future. So Emma, you have your hand raised.
I do, thank you. Yeah, this is exciting, and I think it's also important to acknowledge that we are falling really short of actually completing the walking and biking networks in our lifetime. There was a lot of public testimony, and thank you, Hal, for representing OBPAC, taking our letter and verbalizing it at the OTC leading up to these funding decisions in December. There were the vast majority of comments at the middle of December meeting were in favor of the non-highway scenario. So we were in exact alignment with a range of different stakeholders across the state. And that was really great to see that participation level, especially given kind of the quick turnaround and the hybrid versions being tossed out there. And there were a lot of moving pieces, as Karen said. So yeah, great win. Wish it could have gone a bit further. Is what it is. We'll make the most of it. One comment with the overall funding that's not specific to non-highway is with the Transportation Safety Action Plan update that Michael gave us earlier. We're looking at, I believe, the same funding amount, 21-24, which is $147 million for safety compared to the 24-27 cycle, where if you apply inflation as time goes on, that money is going to be worth less. You can't do as much with it. So seeing that ODOT is reporting that not only are the targets not being met for safety, the baseline of doing as well as we were the previous 5 years isn't being met, and then Hal's chiming in with things are worsening since COVID with the more recent data that we don't have fully processed. That's just a bit concerning of, what's going on with safety funding, and are there ways that we can support keeping more people alive on our streets in Oregon. And then to our work plan piece of collaborating and having more communication between OMPAC, OTC, ACTS, modal committees, other stakeholders. I was really impressed by Commissioner Simpson, and he was pushing for more non-highway, both with the STIP discussion as well as what OTC might direct ODOT to do with future funds that come in. So I'm just going to put the question out there. Are there ways to collaborate further or support Commissioner Simpson and other commissioners to further engage in bike ped? And all suggestions welcome. Maybe it's inviting him to a meeting. I'm not sure how to navigate that, but there might be something there.
So I'll let you think, Karen. There is a comment in the chat. Susan Pythman wrote, just a note, Safe Routes to School Infrastructure is also a competition for local agencies, all 45 million of which will go to locals now that ODOT is pulling itself out of the competition. Jessica said, OMPAC can also write thank you notes to OTC. And then Mavis, you're so good, Emma. Okay, Karen.
Yeah, I think she's spot on with the thank you note. I think that's always good form. I don't think they get those too often, so that is great. Mavis, I want to address an earlier comment you made about people aren't going to be happy, et cetera, et cetera. Part of the conversations that we're having internally with the what's called the operations management team. Catbutt, she's been very busy lately. I don't know why. Is talking about, in fact, we have a conversation scheduled on the agenda tomorrow to talk about, historically, ODOT has really we've really accelerated in delivering these highway projects. But what are the implications when you go from delivering, for example, one $15 million bridge project to, I'm making up a number, 20 safe routes to school, smaller projects? So what happens in with the procurements when you're trying to hire engineers? They only want to take on something of a certain size. So then that points to different types of, procurement and bundling and that's just like kind of one tiny example. I'm not bringing that up to say that it's a barrier. I'm bringing it up to say we are going to have a conversation and an open acknowledgement that we as an agency have these challenges. So what do we need to do differently to pivot and make sure that we are better able to successfully deliver these projects? We've seen some similar challenges, for example, with the ADA curb ramps. I'll just throw that out there as another example where there's been some lessons learned through that process. The other thing that I will share with you is while I'm having those conversations, staff and the team, Susan, Marcia, Jessica, and others are having conversations with other staff to make sure that we have a process where we're just fully aligned and we have that engagement with region staff who deliver the projects once you get through the scoping process, and that we're engaged in the right way in the scoping process and the partnering and so forth. So I would like to, it sounds really messy, and it is a bit messy right now. It's a learning process, I think, for some of us. So I think that's really what we're focusing on and trying to do in very short order to make sure we deliver. And I am 100% aware. I think about the STIF funding we got, the Safe Routes to School funding we got. We gotta demonstrate that we can deliver and that these projects are making a difference and that we're saving lives and, we're meeting the highest, most urgent needs. So we are on it. It's a big body of work, and we'll definitely be looking for you for help along the way. See, I gave myself goosebumps. I'm all excited. Let's go do this thing. Okay, I'm jumping off my soapbox now.
All right, so it looks like we have 6 minutes. Any additional questions for Karen regarding the STIP or any non-agenda items that folks want to mention before our next meeting? Emma?
Just as a next step, I wanted to figure out if someone would be willing to take the lead on the thank you note to OTC for increasing bike ped non-highway funding. I think that's a really great idea. I don't know that I can commit to another thing right now.
I was gonna say, I wasn't gonna volunteer. I was gonna say, if we could get together, we could get the big construction paper like the schools do, and you come and give a presentation. We could all write on it. COVID.
And there'd be music and costumes and, it'll be a grand event.
Yeah.
I'll volunteer. I can put something together. So I'll write the note. I'll write the note.
Only if you use the glitter pen that Jessica has been flashing.
We have three committee members that aren't present today. We need to give them some assignments.
Yeah.
But you already volunteered, Hal, so we're good on that one. Thank you.
I think the thank you note is like easy. I can do that. I can check it off. I can move on. So before we close,
I think it's meaningful coming from you. You kind of pinned the letter on behalf of OBPAC. You testified,
Sure.
and so that's excellent form. Hal, well done.
Thanks. Before I sign off, I do want to apologize to both Karen and Jessica for a comment I made earlier regarding the compensation for this group. I know Jessica has bent over backwards to help move and support our committee. And so I think it was really in poor form and it just came out of my mouth. And so I feel like you needed and you deserve a public apology. So I wanted to do that before signing off. And Karen, you too. Thank you for supporting us and helping us move this work forward. All right, we'll see you next time.
Thanks, everybody.
Bye, everybody.
Thanks, Hal. And yeah, Mavis, I can hang on and talk to you. Let me stop the recording though first.
Hi, Susan.
Bye, guys.